Welcome to the Indiana Athletic Trainers Association podcast. The IATA is dedicated to advancing the profession of athletic training and empowering membership through advocacy, education, networking, and innovative resources. To find out more about the IATA, check out our website and social media pages. The views and opinions expressed by speakers, guests, or others who have provided materials to and for this podcast are not necessarily those of the IATA. The IATA assumes no responsibility for, nor endorses any of the comments, recommendations, or materials that are provided. Welcome back, everybody, to the IATA podcast. My name is Daniel Welty, and hosting this episode, and I am excited for another great episode of the IATA podcast. And we have Megan Devol with us, who is an athletic trainer doing some travel athletic training. And so a setting that is unique and different to the world of athletic training, but not unique to healthcare. And so I want to welcome Megan to the podcast.
Thanks, Daniel.
Well, as every podcast starts, if you want to introduce yourself to people and whatever you want to disclose and tell people about yourself is open.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello, everyone. My name is Megan Devol. I have been a certified athletic trainer since 2019, and I'm currently entering my sixth year of the profession. I'm originally from Southeastern Ohio, but I've been in Indiana for a little over 3 years now. And like Daniel said, I am a traveling athletic trainer. I work with Centra Healthcare, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today and give you a little insight to the world of traveling athletic training.
Yeah, I had got introduced to you, Megan, at the IATA annual
Yeah,
symposium, which I hope you had a great time at. It's always a great event. And it got this quick introduction, and I sent her an email and said, "Hey, let's get you on the podcast because I think this is something I didn't even know people were really doing it.
yeah,
It makes sense when you start thinking about it, as other professions do something
right.
or do things very similar to it from a travel standpoint of things." But I thought, man, this would be a great opportunity to get to talk to you on the podcast, and so I appreciate you taking a little time here to talk. So tell
Of
us a
course.
little bit about, let's just start very broad
Yeah.
as far as what is a travel position in healthcare, and then you can kind of talk about more kind of a travel athletic training.
Yeah, so traveling athletic training kind of works like a typical travel nurse contract. So I take contracts typically in 13-week sections. I've had contracts last up to 2.5 years at that point. So I work with a recruiter, and my recruiter finds me contracts. He gives me a call up and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go to this state or this state?" And usually my answer is yes. I love exploring and traveling. So anytime I get an opportunity to visit a new place and kind of see how different programs work, I'm usually going to jump on that pretty quickly. So they have contracts all across the country, and I will just go school to school. So normally it's a secondary setting. I have had some floater positions in the collegiate setting also. But yeah, it's been great so far.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming some of these schools are saying, hey, we don't have an athletic trainer. They're reaching out to different organizations and obviously find the organization you work with and for, um, and how that process works. But
Yeah,
can you tell a little bit about that, or if you know from that end
absolutely.
of things?
I think two of my contracts kind of came out of some very exhausted athletic directors and supervisors who kind of came to the end of the line with hiring locally, and were just really in a need for athletic trainers. So both of them went to the same staffing company that they hire their travel nurses through and just kind of put out the question like, "Hey, do you guys have athletic trainers?" And at first, the answer, my recruiter told me, he was like, "I've never even thought of that, but let's see what we can do." So there was an ad out. I thought it was going to be the coolest thing in the world. And I actually had some like colleagues that were like, "This isn't a thing. Like, could it be a scam?" Like it was so new. And this was 4 years ago when I started. And it has just been such a great adventure. But I really do think it has just came to that point in staffing where, it is really hard to get a full-time athletic trainer somewhere, and they're kind of going any route they can to just get somebody there, at least for the time being, until they can kind of do that local hiring kind of stint. So yeah, they just reached out to the staffing company, and I'm the only athletic trainer. I've worked with two different staffing companies, and I'm the only athletic trainer either has had. So I'm really excited for, to get the word out there and, see if this could be a position for other people to take on.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool that you're
Yeah.
obviously stepping into something new. It's never easy to step into the water because you never know when you see the
Right.
body of water, right?
Yeah.
It's like, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it nasty? Is it good? And so
Yeah.
taking kind of a leap and knowing that other people were telling you it was a scam was, I'm sure, a little nerve-wracking at first.
It was definitely intimidating at first. So yeah, it's been a great ride though.
So how did you even get to that point of like who made the contact with you? How did that all first start? Like how did that come together?
Honestly, I saw an Indeed post, and it's the same Indeed post for like the travel nurses and the travel PTs that you see. And it's like traveling athletic trainer, and it gives like a little breakdown. And again, like I was talking to my coworker and I was like, is this a thing? And he's like, no, it's not. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to apply and see what happens. And I took a phone call and I had all these questions. And the recruiter was kind of like, yeah, athletic training's not my specialty. Like, let me get back to you on this because, like I said, they had never had an athletic trainer before. So we really got to work together between my recruiter, myself, and the supervisors that were working at the hospital that reached out to the staffing company in general. It was really a new way for all of us that we just kind of figured it out together. It took a lot of communication, it took a lot of trial and error to really figure out things and make this something that could be adjusted into what it is now.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about your experiences before, becoming a travel athletic trainer.
Yeah. So I actually only had a permanent position for a little less than a year and a half before I started the travel route. So my first position ever was a small secondary school in Ohio. And like I said, I was about there for a year and a half. And I kind of just wanted something bigger, and I was just looking on Indeed, and it literally just jumped out to me. So I've really only had one permanent position before I took the contracts. And then there was a stint in between contracts because contracts aren't always guaranteed. In the nursing world and physical therapy, there's so many options out there. And in the athletic training side of things, it's kind of like there may be one contract for 3 months, and then they may not be able to find you a contract for a few months. So I did a little bit of industrial side for almost a year in between some of my contracts, and I got to really learn the injury prevention side and the ergonomic side, which was a whole new world for me in that space as well. But it taught me so much, and I got experience with a different population. And the day to day in those kind of settings are a lot different, but I think the core values of helping people stay active and making them feel the best they can were still pretty similar. So it was kind of nice to have all of the different parts of everything. And I think that's really what I love about the travel contracts in general, is because every contract is so different. You kind of get a piece of everything, and you work with different healthcare professionals and see how different programs are ran. And you get to network and learn from different athletic trainers all across the country. And it really gives you an insight that I don't think I would have had otherwise.
Yeah. So I can just imagine, and I think many people that are listening in are very familiar with travel nurses and travel
Yeah.
PTs, other healthcare providers, and we talk about it. But I was just as I was thinking, I was like, oh man, like I guess once you get the call, like how long does it typically till you have to be there, and then housing and all these other logistical things. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the logistics in regards to this.
Sure. And this absolutely changes from each contract. My first ever contract, from the day I got the call that was like, hey, do you want to go to Columbus, Indiana? I think I was there in less than 2 weeks. So I'd kind of already started the licensure process. I think that is the biggest barrier for travel athletic training, is just it takes about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what state you're applying to. So usually that is where the most time consuming part comes from. I actually just got a call today from my recruiter about we have been working on a contract for about the last 2 months in South Carolina. So it's really good timing because like maybe an hour before this, my recruiter called me up and he's like, hey, the contract's complete. You're going to South Carolina. So I think I will be there about mid-August. So like I said, this time too, I had already started on my licensure process just in case, like fingers crossed this goes through. So housing, they do provide stipends to pay for your housing, but it's all on you to find it. So I've done everything from renting out a studio and doing month to month. There's a really cool app called Furnish Finders that a lot of like traveling healthcare uses. And people kind of just have either a house or a bedroom. And it's almost like an Airbnb, but different vibes. So my last contract was in Michigan and I found a lady who was also a traveling nurse and she rented out to her bedroom. So we were all just a bunch of traveling healthcare professionals living together. And it was really cool to see the side of nursing as well as that and how everything works together. But I would say housing and licensure is probably the two biggest barriers. But it really just depends on the state you're going to and what you need to get done. So there is a lot of onboarding when it comes to it. Like we have to have our physical every contract. So if we change contracts every 3 months, we're getting our blood work done, we're getting a doctor's physical, we're doing the whole spiel every 3 months, which can be kind of exhausting, but usually you're not. The shortest time of period I've ever been at a location was 5 months. And I kind of knew coming into that it was going to be the end of the school year until they could find a permanent athletic trainer. But one of my contracts was 2.5 years between a few different schools through the same contract. So it kind of gets easy in some places and a little bit more difficult in others, but it's nothing that is too hard.
Yeah. And I can imagine, if you're a secondary school is looking for an athletic trainer and they can't find somebody, so they get you on board at their
Yeah.
facility, but then they eventually find somebody. I mean, you could be there for a very short period of time, then
Mhm.
moving on to something else. So that's got to also be kind of as that contract is about ready to whether it needs to be renewed or not. I'm sure that some of that inner things can start going
Yes.
on, like, okay, what's next, you know?
Yes. The uncertainty is probably the hardest part of all of this, other than like saying goodbye after you get attached to
Mm,
athletes and coaches. And it's difficult to like say goodbye, but it's also is, oh my goodness, where am I going to be next? What am I going to do? But I'm very lucky to have a recruiter that works very closely with me. He's in constant communication. He's giving me updates every single time that he has an update. So it takes away a lot of that uncertainty.
very good. Yeah. Yeah, I think licensure was one of the things as I knew I was going to be speaking with you tonight that I was like, oh man, how does
Yeah.
that play and fall out and those types of things and so I'm sure you probably once you kind of have your license in a state, I'm assuming you probably just keep it up and
Yep.
just yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be licensed in 4 states after my South Carolina goes completely through. So, and I just keep up with all of those just so I don't have to worry about it again. And my company they reimburse me for all my licensure fees and everything involved in that process. So it just makes sense to keep up with everything.
Yeah. Another big thing that people may have questions about is like health insurance for yourself and those
Mhm.
types of things, because that is obviously a concern and things that people want to know and benefits. And so,
Yeah.
can you maybe briefly touch on a little bit of those things?
So I know every company is different. Both of the companies that I have been with have had great benefit packages. So full healthcare, 401k, PTO, all of the traditional benefits. So I've been very lucky to not have to worry about that side. But I do know, like I said, when I was living with a travel nurse, she does a lot of strike nursing. And so that doesn't come with benefits as much. And she would have to like search the marketplace. And I felt very grateful that
Mhm.
I did not have to go through that myself. So I know there's some companies that don't provide those benefits, but I think most of the staffing companies nowadays typically provide pretty good benefits with their packages.
Yeah. Basically, you're kind of really just in that unknown of where you might go, but
Yeah.
obviously secure in very
Yeah.
some good fashions, right?
Yeah.
To have those things
Absolutely.
as a peace of mind. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Nice.
You know, what about anything else about a traveling athletic training role? Obviously, we know it's different than being at a full-time position,
Mhm.
knowing that it might change on an instant or at the end of a contract, rather. But what are some other things about traveling athletic training? Maybe that was surprising to you when you first started.
I think the most difficult part, honestly, is learning different states' practice rights.
Mm,
Like, I mean, we all know that certain states have a lot more rights than other states, but when you're actually involved in it and you only have a 2 week notice to start at a school and you're just spamming all of the different practice rates and finding out the legality between different states and what you can do. I think that part is a little bit stressful. And also, you're always just learning new documentation systems. You're working with different healthcare providers that might have very different standing orders for you compared to the last school that you're at. And on top of that, you really have to adapt and be able to gain trust with not only your athletes, but the coaches and the parents. And I've worked at some schools that have never had an athletic trainer before I came in. So I'm building the program from scratch. I'm working with the athletic director to make the emergency action plans and really just getting a standard for the workflow and how everything should work. So when they do hire someone full time, they can come in, all of those big things are already done and they can just have a smooth start. So I think it's just all of the little intricacies that really stand apart. Like if you're going to be at a school for 15 years, you do those big things once and you update them throughout, but I do them sometimes every 3 to 6 months traveling to different schools. So you get really good at some of the admin work that comes involved in that. And really just I've gained a lot of experience through kind of starting those from scratch. And it's really rewarding to a lot of schools that may not have had an athletic trainer, or parents are like, so what do you do? Who are you? And getting to be the person that, explains to them what an athletic trainer is and gaining their trust. And I think every positive travel experience really makes it easier for the next athletic trainer that comes in there to already a dedicated space and people who know what's going on. And it's pretty rewarding.
Yeah. I can remember a time where I was doing some PRN work
Yeah.
and on a regular basis at a school, and some of the things that I noticed and learned and had to kind of help adapt and change, because some things
Mhm.
had been there for years, and I was like, oh, I think some of this needs to be updated, kind of a fresh set of eyes on things, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm sure some of that you provide as well is like something that's maybe even been there a little while, or they've had an established athletic trainer. You get to kind of come in with a fresh set of eyes. And obviously, I think just in this few moments I've been talking with you, the energy that you bring, I'm sure
Oh
that
yeah,
you bring
absolutely.
that to that workplace as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy that part too.
Yeah. And so, as I mentioned, kind of PRN, talk a little bit about maybe some differences, maybe between like a PRN role, and obviously we know that varies, but PRN role versus a travel role that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I also do a lot of PRN shifts, especially like in between contracts over the summer. So I have a lot of experience in both. And I think the biggest difference is the long-term relationships. I think even when you are PRN at somewhere for like, even if it is months or years, you're still not the person that they're seeing every single day. And I think you really get to hone in on the trust and the relationships that you build with the coaches, the parents, the staff, everything. And I think there's also a practical standpoint with that. Like you have more stability, you have more consistency. Um, you have more stable hours, as stable as they get with the athletic training role, other than just getting a call on a Friday night to come cover a football game. You get to see and be there throughout the whole process, which is one of my favorite things as an athletic trainer. Like how many healthcare providers really get to be there when the injury happens, when they're rehabbing and seeing it all conclude. And I think that's one of the most special parts about our profession. And I just don't think you get that as much in a PRN standpoint as you do a full-time role. And travel mimics a permanent position in those ways of we might only be there for 6 months, but we're still there every single day building that consistency. And I really think PRN allows you to support a program, but travel allows you to become part of it.
Yeah. What's a barrier? You talked about working with your recruiter and the health system, and I think initially all that getting started. What was like one of the biggest barriers to kind of maybe break or get into that really maybe you learned or maybe surprised you or something of that nature?
Honestly, I think just the awareness that this setting exists. I think most of us, like, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with another athletic trainer and they're like, oh, yeah, I knew that was an option. Like, it's usually a lot of excitement of realizing that this is a possibility. So I think one, just simply bringing awareness to the position and allowing people to know that this is an option. So there's more contracts out there, there's more options for coverage out there. And then the second I would say would be the state to state licensure. I know a few states are kind of gaining on the AT licensure compact. So I think in the future that could really take down some of those barriers also.
Absolutely. Yeah. Talk a little bit about from a if you have any awareness of anybody else in athletic training that is doing travel AT.
So I have met somebody who works for Go4 as kind of a travel kind of side. And it seems like it's a very similar route to go, but I know in those cases it is more of like a full school year usually, and they don't provide benefits. They don't provide like the PTO kind of side of things. So I have never met anybody else that does exactly what I do, but I think there is some options out there. I think Premier is also doing some things like that, Go for. So I know they're not exactly the same, but I think even through those smaller platforms, it's definitely still gaining awareness to the fact that we can do something in a short term aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if anyone out there is listening and knows of anyone, it would be nice to know because I think this is
Yeah,
such a obviously I only know one at this point that's doing traveling AT. So
yeah,
it would be interesting to know if anybody across different areas of the country or something that's maybe just being quiet, doing their own thing,
yeah.
as also doing this because I think this is phenomenal in a way. I think in we know that, and I'm going to bring up the C word, COVID. Uh, we know that COVID did a lot of different things, but I think also our world has just changed in general. I don't always think it's always COVID, but we know from that time things have just changed. But even before then, I think things were changing in athletic training
Mhm.
anyways. And I think in a positive way for athletic training profession, for athletic trainers. And I think we're all trying to get to we all want the same thing in athletic training. We're all trying we all want to be valued at a higher level. We all want reimbursed or paid at a higher level because of
Absolutely.
our unique skill sets and what we provide. And so there's a lot of things that are growing. And so I can see some of this travel athletic training being a part of some solutions
Yeah,
to some of the problems that some school districts, some hospitals, universities, industrial settings, wherever, whatever job setting it is in athletic training, that I think travel athletic training could help bridge the gap before they can find somebody full time. What are your thoughts on maybe the landscape of athletic training and travel at AT and kind of maybe what you could see this potentially going?
yeah, absolutely. And I tell people that I think I have the coolest job in the world. Like not just athletic training, like I said that before I even started the travel, but you get to do what you love with being compensated well. You get to do what you love with meeting new people and expanding your skill set by working with other individuals all across the country. And I think people really deserve that compensation. I think people deserve that chance to have the word put out there that athletic trainers are in a different setting than they were even 10, 15 years ago. Like, we need this work life balance. We need the compensation that comes along with it. And we need people to bring awareness to just athletic training in general. And I think travel is a great way to do all of those things.
And I guess a question, obviously, still being a young professional yourself, what's a piece of advice you would give to maybe an athletic training student or young professional, or I think in this case, because it's so fresh and new, anybody that's interested in
Yeah.
travel athletic training, what are some thoughts or comments or advice that you might give somebody interested in doing something like this?
Yeah, and I think this advice is something that I would have loved to hear in my first year or even yesterday in my career. I think even as a student, a new grad, or a tenured athletic trainer, I think most of us kind of get imposter syndrome every once in a while. And I think just really trusting your gut and knowing that you have retained so much information over the years and just allowing yourself to trust yourself on that. And in that saying, I think just having a really great network of athletic training trainers in your circle to talk about the small wins when they happen, to talk about the things that went wrong when they happen, and just to bounce ideas off of each other. I think one of the greatest parts of my athletic training career has been the athletic trainers that I have gained as friends that we can just call up after a long football game and be like, either blowing off steam or to talk about how great the day went or the cool new thing that happened that night or the new piece of equipment you got, whatever it may be. I think it's just really important to have that. So I think to just trust your training and lean on your community and don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. So, which was definitely one of the biggest things for me, like seeing that on Indeed. And it was the scariest thing in the world to move to a new state. Like I didn't know a single soul in Indiana when I came here, and really just, like I said, stepping out of your comfort zone and taking a chance on yourself and trusting yourself enough to go out of your comfort zone and do those cool things and really gain experience in those ways.
Yeah. And, as you were talking about, calling people up and building your
Yeah.
community, I think athletic training, from the origins of athletic training, I think because of where athletic training started in providing healthcare to student athletes and athletes, um, there was always this idea of teamwork. And I think athletic training, when it originated, there was this idea of collectiveness, and
Mm-hmm.
being together and having people kind of on your side, not just from the networking standpoint of things, because that's always nice, right? When
Yeah.
when somebody has a job open or whatever the case may be, that networking piece of it all. But I think that community was a big, important piece, of when athletic training really started and continued to grow. And I think it's stayed with us. I think it's stayed
Oh,
with
yeah.
us because I think there's so many athletic trainers like, I know I need community. Now, there's some athletic trainers I would say, that maybe aren't, um, stepping in or reaching out into their community,
Mhm.
or building their network of people, to reach out to. But I think it's still there because I think we all still kind of have this inner like, it's funny because we all have, as athletic trainers, we all have this drive to just help people, and I think
Like,
healthcare in general, right? And you see that probably with different places you go. But there's this athletic training like, you do when you get that badge of like honor of like being an athletic trainer, and you get certified and licensed,
yeah.
and you're like, man, and you have this you kind of put on this athletic training like personality, is because it's like you're willing to do the job, you're doing whatever it takes, it's like, hey, it's football season, like I'm not going to really take my PTO unless it's
Right.
absolute, right? Because you know how it is to be there and be an athletic trainer and be dedicated. We all kind of have those same kind of personalities and traits, I think.
I do
And
too.
so
Yeah.
I think even in some of these other things that we still kind of put on these traits and these personalities. And I think that collective, that community, is something that we need, but I guess what I'm trying to tell people is if you don't have that community, then you need to build that because there's athletic trainers across your state and across the country that are willing to help you and build that community.
Yeah. I think it's the most important part of what we do. And I think there's a lot of great ways to do those now. Like not only your own coworkers and maybe some of your cohort from undergrad or whatever it may have been. But there's so many Facebook pages now. Like I don't know if you're a part of any, but there's like the blowing off steam for athletic trainers, and there's the secondary school athletic trainers. And I've learned so much on those. And it's just a great platform to ask questions and kind of get the whole hive's mind on maybe something that you're just unsure of or don't know the next steps to take, whatever it may be. I think it's the most helpful part in what we do.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to talk about from a travel athletic training that we haven't mentioned or anything of that nature?
I don't think so. I just think it is such a privilege to be able to do what I do. And it is so much more than just moving to a new state. And that kind of seems like the hard part is to getting it all started and, getting your licensure, moving to a state where you probably don't know anybody, but leaving is probably the hardest part out of all. Like you gain those relationships and the students who had never had an athletic trainer before who finally like trust you, and maybe the first month you were there you only saw like a handful of kids a day, and by the end you have 30 kids in your office like wanting you every day. And it's just so rewarding, but it is also not for the faint of heart. And it is just really made me grow so much in my career that I can't imagine a life not doing this. So yeah, I hope more
Awesome.
people get the chance to kind of join me on this career path.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
It's my question that I ask everybody on the podcast. So if you could be an animal, what animal would you be and why?
Oh my gosh. This is probably the hardest question I've ever been asked in my life. I think I think I would probably be a dolphin only because like I could spend my whole life in water and be absolutely fine with it. But also like dolphins have such a good community. Like as we were talking about community, they're great at communication. They are all for each other and really helping each other out. And they're so intelligent animals. Like I think we could learn a lot from them probably sometimes too. So I think it'd be pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully your next position in South Carolina is a little bit closer to the water. That would be
I
nice.
know. I think I'm going to be like 3 hours away from the
Oh,
beach. So that's what my recruiter told. I was like, still 3 hours is better than the 10 hours I am now. So I'll
yeah.
take it. Yeah, we can make a little weekend trip with this the beach. Yeah.
Well, Megan, I really appreciate you coming on to the IATA podcast. I'm excited to learn more about travel athletic training and where this goes. And I think it's just fresh and new. And I think that we'll see this over the years that this
Yeah.
becomes more and more popular and people willing to dive into something like this or other creative ways that people
Right.
open up practices and do different things within athletic training. So
Yeah.
again, Megan, I appreciate you coming on the
Well,
podcast.
thanks for having me, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Indiana Athletic Trainers Association podcast. We appreciate you taking time to listen and look forward to you joining us again on the next episode. To find out more about the IATA or to get in touch with us, you can visit our website or reach out via social media.